On our recent Dolomites tour, setting the pace for the latest and greatest supercars led us to the stark realisation that we needed to up our lead car game. Now the biggest obstacle for that is of course money. But a chat with our friends at JBR Capital was quite enlightening, and the search started for our two perfect tour cars. In the past, we've bought a few cars with our hearts in a sort of, that looks cool sort of way. We've tried to upgrade cars to bring them up to the level we need, and we've even looked at hiring cars, but the cost made that a non-starter. First and foremost, these cars had to be bought with our heads to do the job at hand, and the checklist went like this. Selling our GR Yaris and Lotus Exige left us around £30,000 to put down as a deposit per car, which meant a budget of around 100 grand each. They had to be less than 10 years old, have acceptable running costs, ceramic brakes, comfort seats, and a boot big enough for at least a bit of luggage. As you can see, we drive our cars as intended, so they need to be tough cookies as well. The staff WhatsApp group took a battering for a few days as our time was productively spent finding contenders on AutoTrader, but we kept coming back to the same two. Both of these cars tick the boxes so we could buy with our heads, but both will be a real thrill while doing their job, so they still satisfy the heart as well. So it's a win-win. With that said, I think it's about time we introduce them. Car number one probably doesn't come as much of a surprise because it is one of our favourites. It's a Porsche 991 Gen 1 GT3, and that makes me very happy. Now Jonty's behind me in car number two, which is a Mercedes AMG GTR, which is really menacingly filling my rearview mirror right now.
Yes, this is rather a menacing car, isn't it? That's because it's the AMG GTR, which comes with a 4-litre twin-turbo V8 engine built by a man called Kevin.
So when you think tour car, you think dependable, reliable, perhaps even sensible. So why have we got a GT3? Well, maybe it's because we're not really that sensible, but it has at least got sensible seats, and you'd be surprised at what a difference they make in turning the GT3 into a really quite a usable car. Now, a lot of people, including myself, turn their noses up at these seats in favour of the carbon buckets, which do look really good, but these are so much easier to get in and out of, and they're super comfortable over long distances, and around a quick bend like this, they're still really supportive. Now the Gen 1 991 GT3 caused a bit of a stir when it came out by being PDK only, but given the choice of a manual like you have in the Gen 2, we would have actually still gone for the PDK because it suits the car, but it suits the job when you're trying to lead a load of cars through the Alps.
As for the GTR, however, it is a proper GT car. You've got a decent sized boot in the back, and it is comfortable. This one's got the comfort seats rather than the sport seats. Now this particular car is beautifully spec'd with quite a lot of the option boxes ticked. It's got carbon absolutely everywhere. On the dash, centre console, the little fins on the side and the rear wing. Now, one of the most important features that I wanted on a tour lead car, especially when visiting places like the Alps and Dolomites, was ceramic brakes. Because if there's any part of the car that gets overworked, it's the brakes. When you're coming down mountain passes, especially with the more modern cars, they're a lot heavier. And the last thing that you want to do is to cook your brakes and go straight on in a corner in the Alps. So both of these cars have got ceramic brakes. The noise, it's such an important part of these cars, and the noise of the Black Series just didn't excite me in the way the GTR always had. But then while we're on about noise, I'm just following Matt right now. That car's now got a JCR exhaust on it. And not only does it sound good, but it also looks good.
Now this is actually quite a rare spec, having comfort seats and ceramics as well, but the ceramic brakes are pretty important for when you're going down those passes down from the mountains in the Alps and you're on the brakes all the time. You want confidence, and these give you confidence. We've just had a great drive over here and great stopping power, great stability, and they don't even suggest that they're going to start fading. Now obviously, the star of a GT3 is the engine. In the Gen 1 it's the 3.8 litre, flat 6, 475 brake, revs all the way to 9,000. And because we've got a priority straight, literally the day after we collected this car, JCR fitted one of their exhausts to it. And well, you can hear it, can't you? But the great thing is, if I shift up a few gears, it actually retains the factory valves in the exhaust, so that when you're below 3,500 revs and you're not on much throttle, you can actually cruise along really quietly through villages, so you're not upsetting anyone too much. And on the motorway, I spent 2 hours coming over here on the motorway, and it's totally fine. It's even got cruise control, front lift, so you're not scraping getting into car parks. It's really quite a surprisingly livable car. I mean, you might even say you could daily it. Anyway, enough of that. Handling is unsurprisingly amazing, and it is a real noticeable step up from the 997 that we've got. Now, I absolutely love that car. It's so involving, and it's even more mechanical and challenging than this car, especially with the manual box, but the front end grip on this is on another level, and the stability as well. You have so much confidence on a road like this, and you can just get on the power early. And yeah, it's to do a job, but it does the job really well. And with that noise, oh my God, we'll have fun doing the job as well. I mean, it is quick. As you know, all the power's at the top end, and it pays to rev it to get the noise as well. But it is nicely quick, at a level where we always bang on about it, but you can actually use it on the road. I feel like this will actually do a good job of leading the sort of 700 brake plus cars, because you can come out of a bend and just nail it, get on the power. That's what Jonty was saying following me in the AMG GTR. He could see how much more confidence I had to get on the power. In fact, a funny point about the GTR, I'm drowning myself out with the noise. When I was following Jonty, this drowns it out so much. You can just hear this. All I could hear from the GTR was the odd little downshift crackle. Other than that, it's just all GT3. A lot of people were actually quite critical of this thing when it came out, believe it or not, because it lost that old Metzger engine, it lost the manual gearbox, but it still has bags of character. It does still chunter around on idle when you're going through town. And the PDK is absolutely awesome, razor sharp. It suits it so well. And 10 years on from all that criticism, I think the 991 GT3 is one of the finest driver's cars ever. And for 100 grand, I don't think you can beat it. Oh, I can stay out here all day. But the great thing is, a GT3 can stay out here all day. They can take a beating all day long. Then you can settle it down, cruise on the motorway, go to the shops. What a car.
those regular viewers to the channel, you might have thought, I almost remember this video, but not quite. And that's because a few months ago, by chance, me and Matt drove two very similar cars back to back. He was in a GT2 RS, and I was in the AMG GT Black Series. And funnily enough, we got to the end of that video, and we both said we'd rather have a normal GT3 or a GT3 RS, and I'd rather have the GTR over the Black Series. And then here we are. I remember back in 2019, we're looking at less than 100 grand for a well-spec'd matte grey premium packed car. So why are we now looking at £110,000 for a well-spec'd GTR with low mileage? Now obviously power is rather important when you're going up an Alpine pass, and this has got plenty of it. 577 brake horsepower, but 700 newton meters of torque. This thing accelerates so quick. The steering is very precise, but I will admit, I prefer the steering in the Porsche. It's not that there's anything wrong with it in this, but you just get that little bit more feeling in the GT3. Now, a good friend of mine has always raved about these things and said that they iron out a lot of imperfections in people's driving. And he's not wrong. It will reward when you're really on it, and it'll also forgive some pretty bad stupidity most of the time. Unless, of course, you start messing with this dial down here, which is the variable traction control. Turn that off, or really down to the red, and this car does become rather lively, especially in the wet. Now, one of the reasons that we really felt that we needed some much better cars is everybody had got way better cars than what we were driving in, which meant it was rather hard work at the front. And for the smaller cars that weren't quite up to the job, it was probably costing us about the same in repairs to brakes and various other parts that had been worn out because they were being overstressed, because they were being overdriven. These things, we'll have to work them a lot less hard. So I think what me and Matt are trying to say is, without sounding too much like a primary school teacher, they're both winners.
Having driven the GT3 and GTR back to back, we couldn't quite believe how different they are in terms of character. But the important thing is, they both tick every box we set out to tick. It's a bonus too that the GT3 was an approved car from Porsche Cambridge, so it comes with a 2-year warranty, and the GTR was a long overdue purchase from our friends at Romans International, who were epic from start to finish. And once again, thanks to JBR Capital for their support of this video and for making the deal happen. Finally, members might stop asking us why we don't have a supercar to lead their supercars. What do you think of our choices, and which one of these two would you take home? Maybe you choose something different altogether? Let us know in the comments below.